Welcome to The Girl Herd,
where we talk Texas football.
and a bunch of takes you probably already heard.
But not from us. Hey guys, we're back. So if you watch the Coaches series, it was going to be 8 weeks, and we will come back to it. Don't worry, we'll get your other 4. Houston, which is where we all reside, had a bit of a meltdown or a few wipeouts with some water, so some power issues happened, but we will get you back into the 4 weeks that you missed. For now, it's season time. Yay!
12 days. 12 days.
That is insane. I feel like we just did Sugar Bowl.
I was having that conversation at work today too. I'm like, if you told me it was still March, I would believe you.
I had the same conversation with my mom. I said, can you believe that Saturday, August 31st, Texas football's back? She was like, no, we're just going to have to jump in. Like, y'all, I'm 100% still not recovered from the Sugar Bowl, and it is time for another season.
And we're about to just dive in with this schedule that we have this year. Like, ready or not, here we come. Yeah. Because it's going to hit us full force.
I know. Second week, Michigan.
I literally just saw Sark did an interview and they asked him, like, who decided to put Michigan week 2? And he was like, yeah, that was decided before I was even hired. So I'm not really sure.
Well, yeah, I bet that's true. Like, they probably decided it before. I mean, Michigan obviously was in the Natty or anything, so.
Yeah, but even, right, I think next year, our second week is Ohio State. Like, who's doing this to us?
Well,
but I also kind of love
doing it too. I was like, that's like what we do. Like, we played Ohio State whenever we were in undergrad as well, and I loved it. It was like the first games out of the year. Actually, one of them being, I want to say, a loss too, which was like, oh, but it was like that 4-year build-up trajectory with Colt, and the end not being what we wanted, but just nice that we got back to the Natty.
Yeah. And even like talking about how fast this season has come up, like, can y'all imagine being Florida State right now? Like, their first game is next weekend in, I think, Europe somewhere. So they get
exciting.
Even less time. But still, I'm like, please give us all the time.
Well, yeah. We talked about, like, what was it, even during the, talking about Texas high school, we talked about doing some like preseason games and doing some fun things. Like, you think about NFL, right? Like, they have 2 weeks where they just play random teams to kind of get ready for the games. That would be, I guess that's kind of what we do by trying to give us a layup in the first game, but hopefully, I don't know. Sometimes that works out for us. Sometimes it doesn't.
That's true.
There was a tweet to CDC actually about the game over in Europe for this coming weekend actually, and asking like if we could and how great that would be, like with how our fan base travels. And he shut it down basically and said, well, we already have the one neutral site game with OU. And he's like, I don't think there's enough room to do more than one per year. So it sounds like no on that for the near.
Which is so interesting because I feel like he would be somebody who would want to jump all over that, right? Like, let's do it. But I also am interested to see the game because, NFL has started to do this too and like travel to other countries, etc. I'm interested to see the turnout, like how many people actually go, how is it received, etc. And I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, Notre Dame has done it before because I had a friend that was actually over there and was missing college football, Texas college football. So went to the game over there and said it was, pretty big. I'm sure there's people all over, right? Like, think about people go and take jobs overseas or different things. So, and Europe's not a bad place to go for a vacation. So it is interesting, but there's got to be some reason why we don't want to do it. And hey, like, thinking about all of our season and our travel, I'll take the US for right now.
That's
logistics has to be intense.
Yeah.
the same thing I was thinking. I mean, Texas has the infrastructure to do that tomorrow, but not all things make sense. And I'm not the athletic director, so I don't know from a financial standpoint, but he just mentioned that it's because we already have a neutral site game and not wanting to add anymore, which I think is funny that he said that because also the press
Yeah.
conference that's coming up this Thursday with he and the athletic director of Texas A&M, and everybody was freaking out on Twitter talking about how, oh my gosh, they better not make this a neutral site game, which everybody was like, that's definitely not happening.
There's no way.
Yeah, I was thinking about it as well when you said the neutral site, because this came up in a conversation and I was talking about it with some others too. And I just agreed, like, I wouldn't think so. Like, both of our stadiums are bigger. Why would A&M would never give that up, I don't think, or revenue, or I mean, maybe like I think the throwing out of like maybe putting it back on Thanksgiving Day is a bigger possibility. There's so much speculation around what they're gonna say,
Well,
which
yeah,
I'm sure they love as well.
there's so much tradition built into game days at both of our like at Texas and at A&M. Like that's the whole like it builds up so much anticipation, right? And bouncing back and forth year to year, like what's gonna happen this year. But just being engulfed in that environment is so unique. Like why change it?
Speaking of unique, I'm wondering what you all think about this because they ranked like the top 10 games by like popularity and viewership, like going into season. And of course, we were on there with Michigan, I think ranked in at number 3, but Texas versus Texas A&M was number 7. Someone had commented saying that 7 seems right because outside of like our region and essentially our state, people don't care about that game. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I could probably agree. I think that it's such a big Texas rivalry that like other people probably understand and are like, okay, but to us and like the history behind it for us of it being on Thanksgiving and such holds so much weight that I could see other people like, yeah, we know it's a rivalry, but like, cool.
I wonder
Is it rivalry week? Is it, whatever?
I wonder if that ranking would have changed, years prior, right? Like
Mm.
when we were doing it all the time and that rivalry was occurring. And I just don't know if it's like the times, like I think about it of like who lived in the rivalry, because we've talked about that, like the college kids these days, like do they actually, does it hold as much weight for them, or like how A&M is going to be this year, especially with all the coaching changes or like all those things. I wonder if all of that plays into it, whereas us coming into SEC and like everyone wants to get us, and Michigan coming off of a natty, that one is more wanting to be watched worldwide, or I don't know.
I mean, I think I agree with Angie. I just think it doesn't even matter the cast of characters. However, what you're saying, Michelle, is valid no matter what team. Like, think about
Yeah.
Texas A&M during Johnny Football era. That game's going to go up in ranking because of that
Yes.
and like the cast of players and the storylines. We don't have a storyline to your point. So maybe if this was 3-4 years from now, it might go up. And I guess we'll see what happens with the game. That's actually funny though, because another one of the things that people were speculating on with the press conference this week is that they're going to brand it. We have our cowboy hat for the Red River rivalry, and they're like, oh, they're just going to brand it, make it bigger, like have a big sponsor come in, which I think will just make it more fun. So I guess we'll see. But shifting to our season, y'all, what we gonna do? And I feel like a really good segue is what you were mentioning, Michelle, about preseason, because they do the inter squad scrimmages to prepare themselves and to warm up. And in fact, the last one they made the running backs put on the green jerseys. So
Don't touch our running backs. What's happening?
I feel like we should start there. Like, how are we feeling about the personnel and just, oh, how are we feeling?
I feel like with the running backs, right, and the injuries that we've had in our running back room, it and y'all can give your feedback too. Like, do you feel like that puts more pressure on Sark and the offensive scheme as well as Quinn? Or do you think we have so many weapons in other positions of offense that it's just one knock in the belt?
I mean, I want to feel all of the above. Like, I'm sure, I mean, without a doubt, it's going to put more pressure on them. I mean, it's been all the news, like the number of people that have sent me the articles, like, okay, another running back down. I hope our running backs stay healthy. But I do, like knowing our roster and knowing the other weapons that we have, like, I'm still optimistic. Like, we still have a crew of running backs. I, of course, am not privy to everything they've been doing in practice to know what all weapons they've been using. But if spring break game was any indication, I would like to hope that, maybe there was a shift. But I'm sure, I mean, it's going to be pressure no matter what.
That's what I was saying though, whenever the first injury happened. Do y'all remember what I texted? So like it's one thing for you to receive those articles, Michelle, but
Mhm.
I feel like Longhorn Nation is still like, all right, what's up? Like the season
Yeah,
is over because Baxter went down and the ways
right.
in which the energy has shifted. And I'm so grateful because we are still in anticipation of the season. In years past, it would be like, well, that was your answer, and now you ain't got any more answers, and we're gonna have to wait till the next
Right.
season. And
Yeah.
I feel like we're really gonna see if Sark was out here playing some chess the whole time when pods of the podcast that we had earlier in the year were all around what we about to do with this depth. Well, guess what? We're gonna find out already because we have two running backs down, but it doesn't matter because we got Blue waiting in the wings and
I know. I'm
very
like, no one forget about Blue. Like,
We love blue.
But
yeah,
another really interesting thing, Angie, that you mentioned about Quinn regarding like the running backs getting hurt and the offensive attack shifting, there was this crazy stat, and I should have sent it to you, Michelle, since you love all the stats and we're doing
yes.
our numbers for the Washington game. He has already thrown, I want to say like 500 to 1,000 more yards than Colt did through the same amount of games. So remember, we're going into the season. We are the only SEC school with a third-year quarterback playing and starting. So that is behind us. And also, like, I feel like we can never get enough throwing. So we have been RBU and still are, but I'm excited because it's like, we've got 7 wide receivers, Sark just said today, and he has a little bit of worry about how he's going to work them in. I'm mostly interested in who can catch because we're going to need to do some of those play sets where they would typically dish it and throw it to the running back, put the wide receiver in that position and see what we can do.
Trick plays. I feel like here come the trick plays. Right? Like I feel like it opens up some other avenues for us too. But I do also think it's interesting, and we've talked about this too, of the amount of depth that we do have and how do you keep everybody happy, right? Like how do you keep that competitive edge? How do you whatever? And now, right? People are going to get hurt all the time. So here's their chance. Like, what are they going to do with it? Is that dog going to come out? Are we going to see it? Hopefully, these kids are going to step up and like shine, just like our two that went down would. But I'm very interested to see. But also, is something going to change next year during spring training, right? Like, are they going to approach it different? Is something going to be adjusted? Is training techniques, is whatever it is on the training side of how we prepare, are they going to make it an adjustment? So I think that would be interesting to see too, because it's so many factors go into this, and like how you prepare.
This all reminds me of, I think, we may have talked about it, but like the Netflix series Receivers, and how, like, I mean, I love all of those series and like get into everything about football and sports and whatnot and all the documentaries. It's funny, it's interesting to see inside their lives. But even on the receivers, like most, there was tight end on it, there was wide receivers, and at one point, sorry, spoiler alert if you watch it, but they all get hurt basically during the season and like have to go through that trials and tribulations and how that works within the team and the dynamic, and make sure that like even if you're hurt, you play a role regardless, and you see how quickly those backups have to get thrown in. And I mean, it was even like the Super Bowl game where they were like, all right, man, you're in, like I got to go back and get checked. So it can happen so quickly. So I hope also those guys see that. And I mean, I understand the point of like preparing them, and everyone wants to know like what are we doing during training this is happening. But again, thinking back to that, like this happens throughout season no matter how you prepare and what you do. So
Full
Yeah,
contact sport.
mhm.
I know that today Sark mentioned that he spoke with Andy Reid among some other coaches for the exact reasons of trying to figure out what they should be doing with the expanded season. So this year is going to be the first time any of these coaches are going through it. And I know that we have been trying to prepare ourselves for this tough schedule. Don't know the details of what was going on, like in those practices or, what happened with the injuries. But I know that, like, I want to say it was the 49ers actually. I saw in the news, they were like, we like legit didn't practice because everybody was freaking hurt. So I think some of it might just be understanding building in proper rest that's needed. So I'm glad that Sark is consulting some of those professionals and finding out, like, what do we do with this longer year? Because I think, again, when it all comes out in the wash, I feel like we're going to be like, oh, we needed every last one of them receivers. Thank God.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, they keep talking about the mental strength that it's going to take to get through this season, right? Like every week back to back, you have intense games. And what also is fun about the SEC is how much their other fans do travel, right? Like, and you're always going into an intense environment and whatever it is. So how do we get them mentally tough as strong as they are physically and what that looks like? I know we've had conversations outside of sports about mental health and how much it's become a forefront, and now to kind of see it also cross over into this realm is really interesting. And I'm interested really to see, like, what are they putting in place, right? Like, what are these measures to get them mentally tough that they're instilling and putting into their training, and what all goes into prep for the season?
There's been a lot of conversations like in line with this of like Sark talking about vulnerability and how important it is and what kind of role it plays. And he's done several interviews. It's been like talks a lot around everything, but like, what does that mean? People are always like coming to attack you either emotionally or physically, and being prepared for that. Like everyone's going through something, and having empathy for your teammates and making sure there's love in the locker room. And he was talking about how, back in 2016, like he couldn't even get a job interview. So there's been lots of conversations around that. And like, it definitely hits, especially, I mean, you could take this in so many different ways, but like talking about the season and talking about coming into SEC and all the things that people are already saying about us and our players and our team and us being Tex and not UT, like there's constantly everyone's finding ways to like bring us down, and just, ensuring that it's okay to be vulnerable, talk about it. So around mental health as well.
I was wondering when this was going to come up in our conversation. How do we feel about Tennessee being named by the SEC the real UT?
I mean,
Speechless?
I mean, they can have that and keep
yeah.
like, they can have it. I care about winning championships. Like, that's what we're here to do. I don't care about this. Like, I think it's funny when the fans do it, but I'm just like, all right, like, who cares?
I feel like where there's so many storylines like trying to be created that it again, like what you said, Devin, it's funny. And I think probably some people care more about it. But for us, like, we know what really matters.
The more and more I see it, like my family member who went to A&M, if you're listening to this, like posted it on their, social media, like, ha ha ha, y'all are Tex, UT, whatever, all the things, right? Like you're right. Like there's all these stories coming out about it. Like they're really trying to throw it back out there, kind of like the horns down thing, and make this upset us. Like Tennessee has been around. They've also called themselves UT. They are also a type of orange. Like it's nothing that we haven't heard before, or
Yeah. I mean, within family, there's like a saying, what's understood don't gotta be explained. And it's exactly like horns down. Okay, horns down. Okay, real UT. But at the end of the day, I need for like Longhorn Nation to get in check and in line, because don't react. Like,
Right.
we don't need all these little gnats coming and bothering us about like that other color orange. Get out of here. Like, I genuinely don't have time for this. And they're trying to distract us because I don't think they're about to be playing for a natty this year. So I'm gonna be focused on what I'm supposed to be focused on.
We are worried about the bigger picture here. Wins, okay? What are we about to do on this field? Sit down somewhere else with all of that. We don't need to hear it.
Speaking of which, somebody said something funny about that. Like we should play every time we play them, it should be for rights of like who's the real UT. And that's funny. Like I think like something like that would be cute to like start doing as a tradition.
I'm like, yeah, the hat for Red River. Like, who gets
Yeah.
it for the year? That would be funny. That would be funny. I know, Devin, you had said something a little bit ago about Quinn being the only third-year starting quarterback in the SEC, which I saw another stat today of the top 10 rankings for who they're predicting to win Heisman, right? Like who's up and running. Quinn is one of the top ones on the list, but out of the 10, 7 of them are SEC quarterbacks, which I also find really intriguing and interesting because, again, they don't have as much experience as like Quinn and some of these others. So do you guys have any like thoughts around that, or like what does Quinn have to do to get a Heisman this year?
I mean, I think pre-Heisman polls are some of the most unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
Like they change so much through the season. So to even hear that there's that many SEC quarterbacks, I know a couple of them by name, but I think outside of getting behind our own squad and looking into what's going to go on with them, when you talk about college football landscape 2024, I'm gonna be watching it when it happens. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. Even like the team ranking. I think Quinn, to win the Heisman, he's gonna need all-time performances from touchdown passes, completion percentage, yards. Like it's just going to need to be an all-time performance, which he is prepared to do and should remain up there throughout the year. But in terms of the whole landscape and the storylines and what's going to happen, I think it's going to be a very open year for new players to emerge. I don't know if that's how you all feel. That's what I'm sensing.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that like I don't know. I don't want to pay attention to rankings. I don't want to be like on the too high up and then all you're watched, right? Like I would just be like, I'm gonna be in my zone. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. And if I get there, like that's awesome. Like I'm more about the team and what's happening. I'm sure like he would obviously love that to happen. And it's a thought process going into it. But I'm sure like I also think those rankings will likely change and things will happen throughout season and who knows? I mean, we
Yeah.
just talked a lot about stuff that could happen throughout the year.
Let's take it one game at a time. Because I
Yeah.
feel like when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, the Heisman is so far away. Like there's so much football to be played that, yes, cool. We love your name is thrown into the hat this early in the season. That has to be a little bit of a vote of confidence in your abilities and what this season is going to look like. But like, let's start with game one, right? Like, let's have little bitty milestones, celebrate little victories, and then hopefully they add up to a big one.
Yeah, I hope he lands on top. He has everything within him. He's equipped to do it. And I hope that he gets to do that and ride out high and head to the next stage of his career. Speaking of 1-0 every week, like let's get into Colorado State. I mean, I don't know a lot of history on that squad, but what are we looking forward to on our side of the ball and just like game experience in general for that day?
Me, I think I'm interested to see offense, right? And are we going to play to our opponent, right? Or are we going to come lights out, throwing down the field? Are we running up the score? Like, what are we about to do in this game with this opponent that I don't even know the history? Have we played them in the past? Like,
I'd have to look. I'm not sure.
yeah, not sure. But that's, I think, one thing that I'm really interested to see is like how we handle playing somebody that I guess you can say should be an easy win for us. Like, how are we going to come out?
Yeah, I know. I tried I was thinking about them as well and going into this and looking up and of course poor Colorado State, the only Colorado they talk about is not them because of but yeah, I mean, good points of like playing to our opponents, how that'll go. You know, I think the team is probably like they're also probably prepping of like what they want to try in the first game and kind of watch their schemes as well and how they play out in the if you will, real world or like, the actual game time and on the field with 100,000+ fans and all the things. So, I mean, I'm most excited about football being back, having the first home game, being back in Austin, being in the stadium, and then, of course, seeing what our team can do. The last time we were there was spring game, and we got so excited. And now we're actually starting the season. So I'm obviously most looking forward to the whole experience, but it will be interesting, like how we play. And I'm sure they're going to try all different things. And I would love for us to be points ahead that they can whip out whatever they want, really.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to game preparation, like seeing that every single phase of the game is very disciplined and clean and ready to go, like looking like a national championship team. Like I need to see that out of the gate on game one, cleaning anything up that needs to be cleaned up. I think it is absolutely imperative that we put the running back out there, RB1, immediately and get a lot of confidence, yardage under that person's belt so that it's like, okay, all right, cool. We're rallying behind our new guy and this is going to be great. And then also I need to see a lot of long completions, and I want to see really a good test for Sark. How are you working this rotation? Because it's going to be critical game to game to manage to the expectations of that highly talented group who all need touches, who all are developing themselves, their career. We need to retain them at Texas if they're not exiting for the league next year. So I'm definitely going to keep my eye on how he's running that. But yeah, from the experience side of things, the whole thing, I'm also happy for the team, not happy for me that the game's at 2:30, because that's actually one of the things mentally, speaking of the mental toughness, that they have been embracing and leaning in on and speaking about so much, saying, no, this heat is our advantage. We need to be happy about it. We need to be pretending like we love it. Sark's been preaching that. And so I'm curious to see how that goes, and also excited because more of our games are already slated later this year, and curious to see what the rest of the season holds, but glad that we'll have that one hot one to start us off and get it out of our system.
Yeah, I
That's
think
true.
like you
It
said
is.
too, like Sark is this like offensive mastermind. Like, how are you about to utilize these weapons? And I think it's going to be interesting too. We saw in the spring game some, but all the transfers from the portal that we got, like, how is everybody meshing together? Like, we did have a lot of people leave last year. What does the vibe look like? Like, are they integrated? What is the new, energy of the team? And is everybody like molding together to be this one unified front?
Yeah, I mean, we have been talking offense a lot, but obviously care about the defense and how they're doing as well, especially with all these teams we're about to play this year. And we, had a lot of questions last year with certain things, and they had an article come out about one of the defense backs and how he always wants to get the ball. So I would love to see that as well. Like, let's get some pick sixes. Let's, turnovers. Like, let's do all the things. So I'm ready. I'm excited to see our team and see how everything's going as well.
Yeah,
And I
I don't know
love
about
that we do have the home field advantage and the heat advantage, especially when you're talking about Colorado.
yes. And I don't know about y'all, but one thing that gets me riled up just as much as a touchdown is a pick or a sack on defense, right? Like, I'm going to be stomping my boots. It's going to be happening.
Yeah. Your literal boot, because your foot.
Yeah, literally my broken little foot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is like so much in alignment with everything we've been saying though, because like we lost Byron Murphy and T Sweat, and we're
Right.
like, oh yeah, D line, we're straight, but like we
Yeah.
are. So I'm excited to see them, but I have no worry. And I just am really looking forward to a season of joy, lots of wins. I'm hoping we can avenge our late loss to OU last year. But I feel like we keep bringing up this question because it's a funny one, but someone actually had tweeted it. So I'll bring it back for those that didn't listen on any other pods. Like, are you wanting a win over OU more than you're wanting like the ultimate? Which
We had this conversation again, right, Ange? Like we were just talking about this. We went to Austin recently. Like, what is it? Like, which one? And I think I'm coming back around to like, you know what? I don't know if I care about OU anymore. Like, I want to avenge it, but my one loss or
And beating Georgia, it's like, okay, fine, Oklahoma, you can have it and also go play in
right?
the Alamo Bowl again. We'll be elsewhere in the playoff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go put the golden hat in a display case. We'll come back for it another time.
But like how far we've come to be like I feel shocked that I'm saying these things, but
Right.
it's just true. And I think it just shows the exciting time that we're in with joining the SEC because we haven't even gotten into this, but there are so many more paths to success with us both having the expanded playoff and then joining the SEC. It's just a much different landscape, but in the best way. And again, I do think that when we get there, because it's 1-0 every week until then, we'll start to hear stories of coaches potentially saying what their strategies are because you may want to come into that playoff at a certain area based off of matchup.
I agree. I mean, I do still think, which is interesting, and this also might change, right? Now we have all these other teams that we're going to play. Is there going to be another game that we're so excited about, like we are OU, right? Even though we don't as much care about the win with OU, that is still like on the top of the list of games that I love to attend, right? Like, I'm not missing the Red River rivalry. It's the whole environment. It's the state fair. It's this, that. Like, the energy in the Cotton Bowl is unmatched. So I still think it's up there as far as, like, what games we look forward to for the year. But, and a win just only is, like, the little cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah, what other teams do we think will be that game? I have some in mind, but
I feel like LSU will be one of them just because of how they travel and their game day experience. I think will be really fun.
But we don't play them this year.
Not this year, but we will.
right. Like
Yeah.
out of all the SEC teams, Angie is saying, like outside of scheduling just for this year, who are those schools that will be like on the level of OU for us?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Bama always will be. I think Ole Miss will be fun to play as well.
I'm also interested in the Swamp.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot.
Every school, basically.
We want to beat them all.
We need a tour bus.
Yeah.
I agree though on Bama and LSU. And I feel like the obvious one that we already talked about, Tennessee. Like it's just gonna be built-in funny drama just because.
I mean, our old basketball coach is there.
Exactly.
There's so many ties. So many ties.
But I love that we've come this far where OU can be a loss in season.
I'm in shock. Like I'm actually in shock that we've repeated multiple times on this podcast that we no longer care about that game, winning or losing. Where are we right now?
But
trendsetters. We are trendsetters. That's what we are.
When we are at OU, that doesn't mean that we're not going to be going crazy. Like we need to win that game, but
like it doesn't matter, but it does.
It
does.
That is so funny.
We're willing to lose it. Day of the game, weekend of, we better freaking win.
We will win, but if we don't for whatever reason, we can make that our caption. It doesn't matter, but it does.
But it does. We have bigger wins in mind.
Bye.
I never got to do my sexy red caption because
I know.
Like it's still in the chambers for like the perfect time, but I really want
perfect moment.
Didn't get to.
I also think like it's so interesting that we have 12 days until the season, but then there's also so many things within these 12 days that can happen as far as like recruits potentially committing to Texas. I think there's like 4 or 5 within the month of August that we're like, please, Lord, baby Jesus, like at least give me 3 or 4 of them.
I mean, I'll take them all.
How do y'all feel about who was it? Cade that just flipped his commitment from Texas to LSU.
The same way I feel about everything else. Like, I don't know what it is. I have like Superman cape on my like freaking back. Like, I don't care about none of this. Like, go to LSU. We have a stacked deck. Like, sorry, see you later. See you at LSU if you're still there when we play y'all. But like, I keep seeing this stuff too, Angie, and I just have to say, I ain't worried about it. Somebody from Oregon flipped to us. All these little youngins, I don't know what they're doing, but we will see you when we see you when you decide. And until then, I have to worry about 1-0. So I've just been scrolling past it.
Apparently the kids are still playing hot potato because how fast these little kitties want to flip from side to side is quite entertaining, to be honest.
Well, DeCorian Moore, the Duncanville receiver, who did his decision and picked Oregon. Well, he is from Texas, and he's got his Texas teammates and Colin Simmons like saying, "Don't worry, you all. Like I'm still working on him." And Phil Knight is giving them all that money. So somebody somewhere said that basically they're trying to like get up on all the like merch and free whatever, and then they're gonna be like, deuces, I flipped. So I don't know what the truth is, but I gotta tell you, I ain't worried about it.
Me
Do you
neither.
think
This
it's
is one of those
yeah.
things where I'm like, you want to come to us? Come to us. Like, we will happily greet you with open arms. We want you here. We want you to play for us. You don't want to play for Texas? That's okay. We'll take people that want to. And I love that we'll see you on the other side.
I
We
gotta
talked about, yeah, us being trendsetters. There is one that like I hope comes to us. Jonah Williams. He would be the first person in his family to commit and go to a school outside of the state that they were raised in. And he has like a long history of family that played college football and they all stayed within state. I'm like, come on, come to the trend setting side. We will embrace you. Start, come on.
But I
I
love like your comment, Devin, about like them giving money because it's like I feel like everyone's like, well, Texas is showing Lamborghinis, so we have to do something.
Y'all, somebody was like, did Texas run out of money talking about Cade Phillips like switching or whatever? And I just have to say, it's just like the real UT convo. And I just feel differently now. They try to get us to like freak out and scatter because a couple of commits we lost or whatever. And they're like, Sark's losing the narrative, da 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 da. I'm like, no, he's not. Like, everything is actually fine. I have never felt more high on Texas football than I do right now. And I just feel like at the end of the day, I'm more excited about like, I don't know if you all saw Vince Young, he put a picture of his son.
Oh yeah.
Also,
Inspiration.
like Jermichael Finley's son, I'm like, okay, how about we recreate our 2005 team, but just with all the children?
I think it's interesting. There's been so many storylines coming out of people from our era of when we played, right? Like the next generations of Vince Young and Jermichael Finley, also Colt going into retirement, which he did that and there's 12 days to the season. I'm like, and his number was 12. I was like, there's got to be something going on here. But then also there was another thing that I was going to include in this, but I do think it's so fun to see. Oh, this is the highest we've been ranked preseason since 2009, which again was the years that we were there. Like the energy is coming back from when we were living legends. Okay. It's coming back.
Living legend. Oh, we're
Well,
hype. We're hype, y'all.
super
And you
high.
feel the energy.
And we know it's all 1-0. We're not going to look past Colorado State. However, that is a road game. And I think it will be the first real test of all this hype that we do have. So hopefully we pass when we get there. And I think we'll really be able to kind of start, shaking our
Shaking our
shoulders a little
dreads.
bit. Yeah, like loosening it up and really kind of talking our talk at that point. So I do look forward to the first game. I'm looking forward to season kicking off, and I cannot wait to pod along with all of you.
Yay.
Same. Make sure like y'all have to stay. Come travel with us to all the games. See what we're wearing to the games. If you ever need some tips, come along with us. We're excited.
Yeah, come say hi. We're ready to meet people
For sure.
and cheer on Texas together. Woo!